Hey, well, thank you all so much for joining today for our first ever LinkedIn Live, I guess I should say. So Carolina and Célia, thank you so much for joining and being guinea pigs with us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for having us.
I thought we could maybe just jump right in and kick off by having the two of you introduce yourself, your businesses, and your experience within the beauty industry. So, Carolina, yeah. Woo! It is 5:00, and I have given up coffee, so it's going to be a rough 2021, guys. Anyway, if you could kick off, tell us a little bit about your experience and the Wella Group.
Sure. So I am currently VP of Marketing and Commercial Operations for North America for the Wella company, the newly formed Wella company. Before that, I was at Danone. I did marketing, a little bit of sales strategy for 8 years. And before that, I did marketing and sales for P&G. I've worked in Colombia, where I'm originally from. I've worked in Europe for 12 years out of Belgium, and I've been here in New York for 7 years. I did my MBA in the US before going to Europe, so I've been here before also. I'm very excited to be here. I have experience in many categories, from food and beverage to detergents, and also at P&G on beauty care. So very happy to be back on beauty care now in the Wella company.
And what's your favorite place that you lived now that you've been everywhere in the world?
You're putting me in a tough spot. I would say, no, I've loved every place I've lived, but I think New York now is my favorite.
That's always my debate. Where will I go next? And Célia, we have another international guest with us. Everyone's like from all over the world. I kind of love it. Tell us a little bit about your experience and how you found us today.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Célia and I'm based in Paris, France. Like everyone in my home currently. I've been recently. I've joined the Mawena company recently. It's been 2 months, and I'm super happy. I don't know if you all know this brand, but it's such an amazing skincare brand with a lot of values and authenticity. We'll talk about it later. But before that, I've been working for Sephora for many years, 10 years, and I have a lot of experience in digital communication, content creation, social media, influence, and before that, marketing, product development.
Great. Well, I already heard that the chat board is blowing up, as they say. So I think we might have some difficult questions for you guys at the end, because people really want to tap into your expertise in everything beauty. So I'm going to start off with the first question, but I read this like funny meme where there was this conversation about, like people are writing Happy New Year. How are things going? I mean, and as you said, Célia, we're all still working from home. Like things aren't going much different than 2020. But us as marketers, we know that, last year seriously impacted the customer and how we as brands engage with the customer, what's important to customers. I mean, just from our research at Launch Metrics, we've seen that customers are shifting away from just product-focused marketing and are really, focused on that concept of engaging with brands that stroke some emotion and help really deliver that message of brand equity. So, I mean, you both have had a lot of experience with how your companies and the industry has kind of had to adjust to what the COVID situation has meant to customers and what it means to how we sell our products. So I'd love to kind of start there and get your perspective on how it went, how it's going, and how we should prepare for the 2021 season.
I can start from a Wella company standpoint. As you guys know, we're a professional company at heart, but many of you would be surprised to know that half of our business is consumer. So we had a lot of salons that closed, both nail and hair, and a lot of consumer consumption that started to replace that. So the omni-channel strategy that we had prepared for before, especially our big presence at Amazon and in e-commerce in general, and our own D2C, if this is our stylist platform with my Wella store, prepared us very well for that. So we had to pivot very quickly to help our stylists and our nail techs with bounce back programs, with services that would speed up the process, because in the US we have not really had a full lockdown like in Europe. So it's all about the reduced capacity and how we help our stylists to speed up the process, while on the other hand, focus on consumer education and on fulfilling the more retail e-commerce part of the business, while at the same time adapting to the new trends, which are all about health and wellness. On nail, our treatments are booming. On hair, everything that is about damage reduction, damage prevention is booming. Everything around health, healthy nail, healthy hair is absolutely booming. And thankfully, we had the options for consumers to fulfill that. So that has been another big focus and change.
I think you're absolutely right. Like this health and wellness trend. I mean, and you guys, I guess you better watch out. All these fashion people are trying to jump into your space because really there is so much opportunity with beauty. I get excited hearing you speak too because it makes me feel optimistic about 2021.
It is.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, I think we've already saw, in the past a shift, from a product-based strategy to something more conventional, something around the communities, and have more storytelling. But I think with the COVID, we went a step ahead, and I think consumers are really seeking for more product information, but not only on the product, but how it was produced, where it comes from, what are the ingredients, and it is against the planet. You know what I mean? So it's much more than just the product, and it's the full operation, I would say, around the brand. It's maybe not the perfect English, but yes, this is it. And so, and the consumer, of course, went digital. It was already the case, but it has boomed. And I'm glad that Mawena is a skincare brand recently, because currently it's a place where they should be. People want to have to take care of them, to spend time on their self-love, we would say. So that's why I think there is this profound shift from the consumer, and more than a storytelling, a true story, authenticity behind the brand.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. Before the pandemic happened, we had a lot of research that talked about like this change in customer brands were having to speak to. And it was, before it was all about creating this aspirational brand. It was like less about values and more about setting this dream lifestyle. But we did see that the millennials and the Gen Z consumers, they wanted to find these brands that were inclusive, that shared values with them.
Yeah, exactly. And more than the product and its origin and so on, it's about who is the founder. Is this brand inclusive? Do they represent like all type of people?
Yes.
And it's even more. And you cannot be you cannot only provide good product, but you need to be responsible for them and for the people you want to sell to it.
Yes, and I would say even on top of that, in my previous role, I was working even on Evian, so imagine bottled water. So there's not much hotter sustainability questions on any category than that one. And I can tell you that sustainability is becoming more and more just a hygiene factor in any category. And on beauty is now becoming much more so. That plus, the natural origin, they be able to understand the ingredients, they be able to understand that what I'm putting on myself is good for me. So that for me is a hygiene factor. But beyond that, now the consumers are asking really what's in it for me, and they want to really understand the benefit, the true benefit of what you're offering them. And like Célia was saying, not only that, but they want to understand the ingredients, understand where it's coming from, understand the story of the brand. And the bottom line is being genuine and transparent. It's everything that you need to do around branding today, because otherwise consumers are going to read through it. It's inevitable. They are connected. They have a full, all the data in the world at their fingertips. So it is important that we continue to bring that transparency and that genuine aspect to them. The other thing is that in terms of values of a brand, which is a very interesting topic, I have a deep conviction that if you want to stand for something as a brand, you first need to be credible in the space. You cannot, from one day to the next, start very lofty, value aspirations without having started to, walk the talk on the space as a brand, as what you stand for as a benefit, but also what you're doing for the specific, value or purpose that you are claiming to have. Again, because people are going to read through it. So if there's a common thread here, is transparency, which includes also accepting your shortcomings as a brand. Includes what you're doing with influencers. If influencers don't believe in your brand genuinely, people are going to go read through it. And that's a big shift that has only accelerated with COVID because, of course, people are now more than ever on the digital world.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's interesting that you say that because we spend a lot of time, we work with Positive Luxury, which is another organization that kind of helps certify those brands that are really, sustainable or have those products that they say are from good practices or made of good ingredients. And one term they always talk about is these new consumers, and even now the older generations, because of the pandemic, are really becoming more conscious of these greenwashing brands.
Yes, absolutely.
I think you say it perfectly that you need to, practice what you preach and make sure the people you align with, how you do marketing, how you activate, all come back to like what your product is, not just what you think you stand for.
Exactly, yes. And you need to be very mindful of the perception. Perception is reality, like one of my good mentors used to say.
I think that actually is a good kind of leeway to the next topic. I mean, I wanted to ask actually what you think when you're talking about what you stand for, what's the best way to communicate. I feel like that goes hand in hand too with how COVID has really sped up this digitization and the way we can engage younger and older audiences through digital. I mean, before we used to see that, of course, it was easy to engage millennials and Gen Z, but just through the pandemic alone, we've seen like a 42% increase in online consumption, social consumption for the baby boomers and the Gen X. So it's an exciting time now for marketers. But I guess I would ask you guys too, like, how do you see digitization impacting how you do marketing? Maybe a really good thought on that too is you talk about, how do you communicate what you stand for? Where are you communicating that? What are the best practices around that too?
So from a media standpoint, the media is now a very big term, and there is not such thing anymore as digital marketing. All marketing is digital. Even TV has become digital. So what you need to do more than ever as a marketeer is really, really understand your target. Not only, their demographics and the traditional sense, but their values, their principles, and how they're consuming media. Because today it's impossible. It doesn't matter the budgets you have. You can have the biggest budgets in the world. If you really don't know where your target consumer is consuming media and who that person is, you're going to waste money because there's so many options. It's a fallacy that now only with TV and Instagram, you can reach your target. You have all these other channels, TikTok, Twitter, like you name them, YouTube, programmatic. There's endless. Plus, you need to win on search and you need to win on e-com advertising. So that's what's gonna drive your choices. You really need to, as a marketeer today, invest a lot of time on really and energy understanding who is your target, deciding who that person is, and going for it. The advantage that you have in a market like the US or North America is that it's big enough to really have scale with really targeting a group of people. So that's really an advantage that we have here. And that is what needs to drive the decision making to the point of, even deciding who your influencers are going to be.
Yeah, to me, I totally agree with you, Carolina. It's really difficult now to know exactly the consumer path, because you need to understand where it gets this information, but where in the funnel he is, because you can be on Instagram and just finding inspiration and then looking at the tutorial of an influencer, or even be retargeting and being at the end of your purchase path. So
yes.
For me, it's really, really difficult, and that's why it's difficult as well to manage your investment, because how to compare €1 invested on Instagram and where it is in the client path. So maybe it's going to work on a certain product with this type of influencer, maybe not. So that's really, really difficult. And to me, especially when you're a little brand and you need to choose very carefully where you invest €1, it's important to have really A/B testing and very fast learning with either it's on influencer, either it's on paid, either it's
Yes.
So that's the main difficulty, I would say. But in another time, I think now the target reacts really quickly on digital. So you know that when you invest like even 5 euros a day on a Facebook ad, you can have already the number of click and analyze and then scale it up. So yeah, it's much more complex. Even before, I used to say it was on Instagram. If you are an indie brand or a skinny brand, you just want to launch on Instagram, have a wonderful platform. But now,
Not anymore.
you need to choose if you go on TikTok and what kind of influencer you're looking for. Same, I think YouTube is rising again because people are looking for more information, so they spend more time on YouTube. So important channel as well to pamper, I would say. So yes, it's a diversity and it's much more complex, but more interesting in terms of marketing because you can really address the right message to the right people.
I think you're bringing up a great point, which is the funnel. Because besides being very clear on who your target is and how they consume media, is what is your brand position in the funnel? So are you a new brand that needs to build awareness, or are you a brand that has a lot of awareness but is not in the consideration set, or you're there and then what you need is to convert people, or are you at the place of advocacy, or several or different parts of your marketing mix are there to build different parts of this funnel? So, for example, a lot of the work that I've done in the past and that I'm doing now is brands that have a lot of awareness but are not in the consideration set. You need to, on one hand, use paid to build consideration, to make people aware of really why is that brand for them, but then also have a big role of influencers for advocacy to really, make them feel part of a community. So the combination of those two is a winning combination, but you need to have a real good thinking behind it and a lot of data for as much as possible as you can get, which, by the way, now the data is at your fingertips. You can Google Analytics. There's a lot of free data out there that you can use to define these metrics. It doesn't need to be big fancy stuff.
One thing that we get a lot of when customers first come to us to use the launch metrics data is there's sometimes a disconnect between who your customer is and who you want your customer to be.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So I don't know if you guys have any comments on that too, thinking of how you target this, who is or isn't your customer, and how should you decide?
I've done plenty of work on that. Yeah. So your consumer base, you cannot alienate them. That is number one. If you're a brand that has a very big established consumer base that might be declining for whatever reason, very old, like I had in my past or things like that, you cannot alienate them. That's number one rule, because then your bread and butter is gone. But then what you need to define as your target is what we call our prime prospect. So who is going to ensure the future of your brand? And then what you need is to make sure that what we have talked about, also the content that you create and the way you communicate about your brand is not alienating your current ones, but it's really, really going after recruiting those new ones. It is an art, because it's not easy to manage the two. But what is the holy grail is when the two are very, very in sync. When your current consumer and your future one are very similar in their psychographics. I'm not even talking age, in what their aspirations are and what they want from a brand like yours. But yeah, I would say you need to understand who is your target overall, including your current consumers, but then who you want to design and build the future growth of the brand for.
I think you also just hit a really interesting point of how we've seen the beauty industry change over the last few years. But actually, previously, it was all about targeting people by age group, right? And now that's completely shifted, because people that are 20 are worried about things that you really shouldn't worry about until you're much older. But it's all about, again, we spoke about this, your values, your interests, how you align with a company. So that's quite interesting. Okay. I guess I want to jump to questions because we actually ended up getting a lot. I know we talked about some other interesting topics, but maybe if you don't mind, we move to the hot seat. Sure. And then if we have time, we can come back to our regular scheduled program. So what kind of innovative approach is the most suitable in the beauty industry to provide the best customer experience? Do you think it's stuff like AR, VR, or anything else?
It's a massive question.
Should we say, like, should we do it kind of one of those game shows where it's like pass?
No.
Let's jump on this one. It's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for me, the best way to provide the beauty experience is through really education. So for the rise of YouTube is super important, and of influencers, but truly the ones that are going to provide the true, genuine, experience to the consumer. There's nothing that would replace that. The virtual reality stuff that I'm seeing in the market, it's starting to pick up. It's okay-ish, but I don't think the technology is there. My experiences have been very iffy. It's novelty, and it can, it creates a lot of impact. It allows you breaking through clutter, but nothing replaces really the YouTuber that is talking about the brand, the beauty influencer that is really explaining what worked for them. That for me today is really how you build really credibility and emotional connection with the consumer.
Yes, to me it's the same. I can see that there are some things popping, and in the in Asia, for instance, it's really powerful, this AR thing, and they are really buying after using it. But I feel now the most important would be to have the kind of flawless execution across all these omnichannel paths, having the right experience at the right time, and that's the difficulty, because you can have AR in store and it's great, but you can have it on social at first, and then you can have a filter with an influencer, and it's not really the technology that makes a difference, but it's more how you use it and when. That is important to me.
Absolutely. Well, I think working at a tech company, the biggest flaw we see that brands do is introducing something because it's a gimmick.
Yes.
Kind of a tagline at Launch Metrics is it a gimmick or is it a game changer?
What is true is that I can see that online we are seeing other experience, like online website. We're not only selling product as we used to be, but I think the next step and the game changer will be to have really something very immersive, with a lot of information, with online beauty advisors, and something that is really, really cool, and not like some gimmickies or stuff like that.
I think the next frontier is what they're, like you say, Célia, is what they're doing in Asia. I've seen that very recently. I think it was in Alibaba, on one of the big e-commerce platforms. They are doing streaming. So they stream live with an influencer, and you can go buy. So it's a combination of social, because it's a community, live video, and e-commerce within an influencer talking about your beauty brand. So we are going to get to that point at some point, but it shows the importance of community credibility and genuine communication to your target.
Absolutely.
And opening your brand to your community, because it's not only talking about the rating and putting a rating after buying a product, but it's just a community talking together on a certain topic or wish, or
and you're delivering an experience on top of that, which is, I think, the biggest, the strongest emotional connection motivator, I think, for consumers.
So we have a mix of audience members, big brands, small brands, experienced marketers, not so much. One of the questions I like to target is, for small brands and startups with smaller budgets, where do you think they should be investing their resources, time or money?
But again, it all goes to, who do you want to attract? Who is your audience? So today, the good thing about small brands is that they can get buzzy and word of mouth. Social is the new word of mouth, right? Or the not new, that already word of mouth is what replaced word of mouth. And the difference is that now it's exponential. It can go exponentially big overnight. But you need to know who are you talking to, and who you want to attract to your brand, and then based on that, understand where are they consuming the media and what are the communities that they follow. Once you have that, you have your answer. It will not require huge budgets. And by the way, there's a lot that you can do already in earned and owned. Today, today influencers and PR are completely merging. If you see the big media platforms, they're plugging a lot of their content from social and from influencers. So if you know how to do that well and how to play that game, you can get billions of impressions without having a lot of investment.
But it's true that you have to compare your social platforms because it's a kind of window now, even
Yes.
if you want to enter a retailer, and for sure they will have a look at it. Influencers, same. So it's really important to compare your social media so you have a true window about your brand.
You know, it's interesting. At Launch Metrics, we launched this metric called Media Impact Value a few years ago. And we kept saying when we'd go to meetings that it's no longer about like owned, earned, and paid, because the truth is with
Yes.
influencers, for example, everyone's paying influencers different amounts, and some influencers work for some brands for free. So it's really about determining how much value is my competitor driving compared to what I'm getting. And if the two ratios don't match up, then obviously you need to think about if you're really investing your resources in the right place to compete with them. So I think it's quite interesting that that comes up, because there definitely is this new kind of segmentation between owned, earned, and paid, and how you understand what's working and what's not working.
It's all blurring because you can use your influencer content to do paid. You should actually, your best posts, you always need to push them, even if it's a small amount of money. PR is blurring with influencers. Your own channels can create a lot of buzz as well, so that can become earned. So everything is becoming very blurry, which is great, because that means that you can have a lot of impact with not a lot of investment.
It's true. I think too, the concept of print, online, and social too, you know, it's funny, we talk about that a lot, that some brands are still so focused on print. And I do think in the luxury market, for example, it hits well with that demographic. But at the same time, when we come to marketing strategy, no one now ever says, hey guys, let's only focus on print, or like, hey, if you could just put this story on social, like, no, from a PR perspective, and we're happy for it to be everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
The world has absolutely changed. Well, I think that's it. I know actually once we end today's session, it will go live as a post on LinkedIn. So if we haven't gotten to your questions, if you guys watch this later and you have more questions, feel free to comment, add any of us, I guess, on LinkedIn. We're around. It was so great chatting with you guys, and hopefully this is the first of many LinkedIn Lives, and we're going to definitely come back to you guys and get you to give us some more of your expertise in the beauty industry to share with this huge fan base. So thank you guys for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day, and enjoy the weekend, which starts tomorrow.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.